Okay, so I'm recording this and I'm going to talk about pharmacy settings. So this is covered by chapters 15 through 17 of your text. There's also a PowerPoint for this week, although I'm not using the PowerPoint. What I'm going to be talking about is the variety of potential settings that you as a pharmacy technician may find yourself working in. And I will compare and contrast the different settings and the different duties you would have in those settings. And we'll start with I'm going to give three different classifications. One is a community pharmacy. Another is hospital. And finally, I'm going to call it specialty pharmacies. Each of them do have differences. You have different responsibilities. You have different contact with patients. You have different requirements. So in a community pharmacy, this is by community pharmacy, I mean Walgreens, King Soopers, etc. Places where you walk in and mainly deal with oral dosage forms. Now, that doesn't mean that no injectable products are sold in a community pharmacy. Clearly, they are. Insulin. You get insulin from community pharmacies if you are an insulin diabetic. If you are taking things like Enbrel, which is taken care of by an auto-injector device, you can get those at the community pharmacy. These are prepackaged materials that people are instructed how to make use of. So it's not like giving yourself an injection. So you can give yourself injections. I mean, obviously, diabetics do it all the time. But for the most part, when we are looking at these injectable products sold for consistent use, we find ways such as some form of injector pen, some sort of auto injector that will train people how to use.
My brother has lupus.
Right.
And when he went through like crisis, he would have to inject.
Do you remember what he was taking?
No, I'm trying to think about it, but I remember that how the needles looked. We like literally like squish all the like drug out, and then like the needle would just pop back in and you throw it away like nothing.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool because like, that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
The way that
Yeah, we've come a long way from the old days of syringes. When I was a kid, we didn't have. When I was a really young kid, like first grader, we went through the initial mass vaccination against polio in the early 1950s in this country, and they had all of these syringes, and the syringes were metal body or sometimes glass body, metal body. And so they had, of course, to a first grader, the needle looked like a fire hose. It looked like nothing. And they weren't very good about giving shots either. But they gave these things to us. And I can remember lining up and just walking down there, and we'd walk through, and they'd whack us with these injections.
Is it like that movie Crybaby?
No.
No. Have you seen Crybaby? Oh, it's an old movie, and they talk about how the first day of school they make them stand in line and they go by and wipe their arms and then take the big metal and then just stick it in their arm and pass it out.
Yeah. That's my memory of what happened when I was in first grade. And definitely a lot of us cried. Because it was not a very now, when you take an infection class here, we teach you how to give shots properly, things that basically don't hurt. But we don't. But again, going back to our technology, the first time I saw an auto injector, I was in the Army, and I was working at a research post in Maryland, and we were working with nerve gas. And the nerve gas antidote is a compound called acetylcholinesterase, which metabolizes, it helps metabolize the nerve gas and deactivate it.
Okay.
And it goes in with an auto injector. And this thing, we have used it. So you prime it, and then you whack the dickens out of your thigh. I mean, it was like you were trying to drive it from one side to the other. And the needle would pop out and inject stuff in. The needle again would immediately retract. But we had to get used to that because we didn't want people afraid to actually do that to themselves if they got exposed. Now, fortunately, none of us ever got exposed, but being that fear, overcoming that fear, that's what you have to do with people with EpiPens, which is another thing that's sold in community pharmacies and other injectables. You have to get them over the fear of actually using the device, because it seems brutal, but it beats the dickens out of dying of anaphylaxis. So, it's just a case of knowing that. And it's nice that your brother knew to use it when he needed it, when he treated lupus.
Well, we're the same age, and this happened like 3 years ago. So he was like 17. And he, like, my mom would help him out a lot, but he kind of knew how to keep himself under control. I don't know. I know there's still some of his meds sitting around somewhere, but away.
Well, you should check two things. You should check the meds.
Mm-hmm.
I am not injectable products are the ones that I take.
Yeah.
That pills. The other is that
Mm-hmm. We've never known where to take them.
Pardon?
We've never known where to take them.
Keep, where do you live?
In EN, really basically.
Periodically, I know in Logan, once a year they have a drug take back. And it's not for, illicit drugs. It's not for illegal drugs. We're talking about prescription drugs because we really don't want to, because our sewage systems, our treatment systems can't handle it.
Yeah, and at first, when my brother was he was afraid of needles, and he did not want to live with the fact that he had to keep injecting himself.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time where, like, he would tell us, like, oh yeah, I already did it, but he would go like squish it up at the sink. So then the sink grew like some weird like mold, or like, I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah.
And it was like because of the drug, and that's how we found out. And we noticed also because the doctor keeps track of like what the drug's treating, and he wasn't getting anything out of it. So then she asked, like, she knew that, like, if there was anything going on with the things at home, that it was due to the drug that he was prescribed. So then now we would like watch him do it, or like my mom would do it for him, but it was just like the crisis he went through. And now he's well, but
he was lucky.
yeah.
But I would do that. But there are drug take back programs. Once in most of the communities around here do that about a year, and you just take them to some central location. There are no questions asked. The only thing they will do is they'll ask you to separate out needles versus other formulations. because the needles need to be taken.
They have a little box that across from family physicians and Greeley, emergency room. There's a little box in their pharmacy that is a drug take back. Is it really? Yeah.
There you go.
You just drop it in the box and wait.
And so, yeah, there are mechanisms.
I know we have a few boxes. Family physician. Coming down the street, there's the emergency room and then the other doctor's place.
Yeah.
With the pharmacy, the other doctor's place across the street from the emergency room. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting, it used to be that pharmacies would take these things back and they would turn them over to a licensed medical waste disposal organization. That would take them out, would autoclave them and then destroy them. But they have to pay for that. And so a lot of them would say, I'll just flush it down the toilet. Well, they're getting, they're understanding that we can't do that anymore. So if you talk to a pharmacist, you can ask, where is a place that I can take back these expired drugs that are in the house? And if they say flush it down the toilet, go talk to them. Really, literally, you should not do that. Our two things are going on. One is that obviously the sewage treatment plants are not designed for drugs. They're designed for other things, obviously. And the bacteria in them are not capable of destroying drugs. In fact, what the bacteria sometimes do, and we're seeing this as a problem, what some of the plants have found out is that they have bacteria growing in them that will, remember we talked about metabolism and excretion of drugs. The metabolites are generally not active. There are bacteria that are now converting the metabolites back to active drugs, and these drugs are entering the water supply. Another thing is that some places where cocaine use is high, the sewage treatment plants cannot, the cocaine is excreted through the kidneys, so it goes into the water system. And there's at least one city in the United Kingdom where the water has so much cocaine in it you could get high just drinking the water. Yeah, kind of scary. Anyway, in the communities, you're going to be taking prescriptions in. You're going to be filling and checking those prescriptions, and then filing them. And then you will directly interact with the customer to deliver and take payment. So when you go into a pharmacy and deliver a prescription, the person who's going to take it is probably going to be a pharmacy technician, unless it's unless you're doing this in an overnight pharmacy. A lot of times, overnight pharmacies do not have because they don't have enough business to support more than one person, and the law requires a licensed pharmacist to be on premise and active in the job anytime the pharmacy is open. So, pardon? It depends on how much business they have. If you have maybe the only 24-hour pharmacy in town, yeah, the one on 10th, yeah, I've been by it. If you have the only overnight, the only 24-hour pharmacy in town, you probably will have it because you'll have business 24 hours a day. And people will go in. So you're going to be talking to the customer. You'll be dealing with this. You'll check it. Your pharmacist supervisor will check it as well. That is that's a requirement under the Practice Act. So you'll do all that. So you're going to have to be taking money. You'll be operating a cash register. You'll be doing all of the things for each customer, dealing directly with customers, which means, of course, you'll be dealing with a wide variety of people coming in. And so you're going to have to learn the real meaning of customer service, because customers coming in, many of them, okay, yeah, I have high blood pressure. They'll come in and they'll have that attitude. I don't take any prescription medications. But you'll hear people come in and they'll just be filling their standard prescriptions, and they're perfectly happy, upbeat folks, nothing wrong with them. Then you'll get somebody coming in whose child is extremely sick, and they're not happy. And you have to deal with unhappy customers as well as happy customers. So you need to learn how to be completely level and neutral with them, because there are some people who can be pretty nasty. Not deliberately. There are some people that are nasty deliberately, I know that, but for the most part, you don't run into those. But you have to be willing to deal with people who are not happy campers. Right? Mm-hmm. All right, so you're going to deliver, you're going to take payment. You're going to monitor inventory. Every pharmacy has an inventory schedule that they follow. For the most part, pharmacies, because of the expensive drugs, pharmacies will try to have about a 30-day supply of any drug that they carry on hand. And about means just that, because there's really no way to ever predict how much drug you're going to dispense in any one period of time. But over time, you will realize that there are certain kinds of drugs that are chronic. Blood pressure medication is one of those. So you'll have a fairly steady base of customers. But you generally, there are enough pharmacies around, and people generally go to the same pharmacy. So, where do you start? Is it from pharmacies as well? Pharmaceutical representatives will come in and often will give samples of drugs to doctors, especially new drugs. And they do that because they're trying to give the doctors a reason to try out a new drug. Now, sometimes the drug is so important, so much of an advance that that's not as much of a necessity. But pharmaceutical reps will give doctors samples. Doctors can't sell them. Yeah. They will give them out. And especially some of the new expensive drugs, doctors will give them out to the patients because they know the patients can't afford them. Yeah. But they also give them an excuse then to try out a drug and find out if it works in their patient population.
What causes shortages?
Shortages come when the pharmaceutical manufacturers can't keep up the manufacturing. The orders can't keep up with it. Pharmaceutical manufacturers, when they're manufacturing a drug, they manufacture lots of different products in their plants. And there are times, such as flu season, when there's going to be a greater demand. They try to anticipate that because they understand cycles. Flu season, you're going to sell a lot more chemicals, whether it works or not. But it does on some flus, but let's talk about this topic too. And that is the placebo effect. Placebo effect is when you get well, even though the drug doesn't work, doesn't have anything to do with it. And the placebo effect is much more widespread than anyone used to think. Your mind actually controls a lot of times how your body works.
I was gonna say because oh, like I have a headache, and I'll be thinking about it for like ever, like oh, she has a headache, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, damn, I have a headache too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it feels like
Yeah. And that suggestion works. You start thinking about it, and pretty soon that's what you feel. That's a reverse placebo, right? It's the nocebo. You start getting ill because you hear about it. It's not that you're hypochondriac.
or like
It's
I'll
that
have a
you-
cold and like I start I'm like I'm dying and I'm dying. And I make myself feel worse than what I already am, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But the thing is about things like the flu and colds, these are viral diseases. And viral diseases generally, things like, these are acute viral diseases as opposed to chronic. Yeah. But acute diseases are really self-limiting. To be kind of blunt, they either kill you in a hurry or you get better real fast. Right? And we see this, especially in the elderly and the very young with the flu. They can be fatal to that population. And it's fast when it happens.
So when you do it for like since now, the flu's been like, I don't know, a lot of people this year, and then they say get the flu shot, but then I heard on the news the other day, the flu shot's only 30% effective.
Yeah.
Should I even try and get the flu shot?
Well,
Or my son, should he even try to get the flu shot?
how old is your son?
He's 15 months.
You might want to think about that because that's, the very young are more susceptible. Part of the reason is they don't have a well-developed immune system.
So how long is the flu shot been in your body?
Probably 6 weeks,
That's it.
on average. It's the way it works. It's not. The problem is the virus itself evolves. I mean, once you have that very specific virus, and you have a flu shot, the chances are pretty good that you will be immune to that virus if it's the right vaccine. Well, the thing is that the cycle of development of things like that's another thing. The infection program, you go and get flu shot. But the cycle of trying to make a vaccine takes a while to make a vaccine. And vaccines are a kind of a special case. Normally speaking, if you like the development of the hepatitis B vaccine, the full clinical trial process took years to get done. The flu changes every year. We don't have years to test every one. So what we have is a sort of consensus best guess as to what strains of flu are going to be in the population in 1 year. And then we have to start 9 or 10 months earlier to develop the vaccine, which takes a little bit of time. And then it has to be manufactured. And there are people who can't take it because most of these, we are learning more about vaccine technology, but most of them, we grow the virus that we're going to use. We grow the virus in egg, and so people who are allergic to egg normally can't take food vaccine.
Yeah, and I was in Mexico and I was like close to catching a cold. And they kept telling me, like my family, they kept telling me, just go get a shot, go get a shot. And over there they give you injections like on your butt, and they're like, oh, it's not gonna get you sick. It's gonna go away. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna get no injections in my butt. Like I already took a flu shot at home.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take more over here.
Yeah. Well, the one thing about the flu shot, it's only 30% effective. But what they don't what they can't really measure is that when you get a vaccine, it doesn't just boost your immunity, a specific organism as much as we think, not limited, because we generally challenge the immune system and make us more likely to, if not be completely avoiding sick, and our immune system and fight it off. So there's a lot to be said. But you have vaccines it's a special area of medicine. They're a very effective way of dealing with some diseases. The polio vaccine, like polio in this country, it's coming back. And we haven't wiped it out around the world. Smallpox, we completely eradicated. Okay, by a worldwide effort at vaccinating everyone we could reach. And so we removed it from the deadly disease category. It's rare. There hasn't been a confirmed case of smallpox since, I think, 1979. And my wife and I actually saw the results of that. We spent 2 years backpacking around the world in 78 and 79. And in 79, we were on the island of Sumatra, Malaysia. And it was in the summer, and we were on the coast, and it was just blazing hot and humid. So we took a bus up into the mountains, and we went up to a little town called Toba, which was in an extinct volcano. And about 2,500 feet up in the mountains. It was a heck of a lot cooler than it was at the coast. But we get into this town and we looked around, and everyone in the town that we could see that was about 16-year-old or older had smallpox scars. Everyone younger had no evidence of smallpox. And so we figured that about 15, 16 years earlier, which would have placed it in the early 60s, the Indonesian government, probably with the help of the World Health Organization, possibly with help from the United States Centers for Disease Control and other health organizations here in the United States, had gone through that area and actually because it was like a line slam. It was really amazing. And to me, it's one of the strongest arguments for the effectiveness of vaccination. So that was our experience. Anyway, let's go back to the community pharmacy. So you'll monitor inventory. You will prepare stock orders. In other words, you will get a list as things start to get below your inventory level. The other thing is that we'll set a level of inventory on hand, and we'll have a range. It drops down below our minimum when we reorder. Okay, so you're going to prepare the stock orders.
Well, really?
Pardon?
I got the impact on my own.
Yeah.
I guess we had a live stream shortage, and they kept pushing my appointment until later. I went to a Planned Parenthood, and they said that they just didn't have enough in stock, and Planned Parenthood had so much out of it that they were asking Planned Parenthood for it, but they couldn't really give any to them out because it's not how it works.
Yeah.
But
well, you do have to. You do have to. We had a shortage a few years ago of heparin because the manufacturing plant for all the heparin
Now, Chinese plants are inspected by our FDA. So they have to have a certain level of quality. But they had something go wrong in their processing, and what they were delivering was, looked like heparin, but didn't behave like it. Heparin is an injectable anticoagulant, given usually after surgery. So we have, and the lidocaine shortage was because, again, there's a limited number of plants that actually manufacture it, and apparently one of them had a major problem, and they had to shut it down and clean it and, and re-inspect and get it re-approved.
So it was a plant or?
Yeah, it's probably the manufacturing facility that was the problem. Lidocaine is is a drug that's used so much. I mean, if you go to a dermatologist and they decide to do a skin biopsy for testing cancer and stuff, they'll give you a little local of lidocaine first.
Dentist.
And dentists use Novocaine, which is different, or propane.
Sounds the same.
Yeah, it's the cane. They're the cane family.
I feel like it comes from one.
Pardon?
I feel like it all comes from one thing, right?
It starts off. It's a modified natural product. So there are two things that happen: either starting materials or raw materials are not available, or there's a problem in the manufacturing. And it's becoming a bigger problem because we have so many people. We got 7.25 billion people on the planet. Now, not all of them have access to these medications, but just us in the so-called developed world, there's 2 or 3 billion of us. That's a lot of people using meds.
Mm-hmm.
And as the population ages, which is doing, we're going to use more. The elderly consume 80% of our drugs. And that's just reality.
I feel like the elderly in the future will live at least 103 years, like a few more years, just because of how advanced the drugs are.
We'll see.
That's what I feel like, because I don't know. My great grandpa, the one that just passed away, he passed away at
107. Yeah.
He was dying.
My grandma's like,
He was the Walking Dead already. And I feel like he just died just because he was too old.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was sick or anything.
oh,
Yeah, well, my father's 101.
my grandma's
And my mother-in-law is 98. And neither one of them are in particularly good shape, but they're hanging in there. My dad's already planning on his 102nd birthday.
When is that?
New Year's Eve. So it's a while. It's another 11 months. But so he just turned 101. But I mean, yeah, we've extended lifespan, but then our lifestyle is such that remember I talked about functional medicine a little while ago. Where functional medicine sleep, exercise, diet, and meditation are the keys to health. You didn't hear drugs in there. That comes when you actually have something that requires a drug, an infection. Antibiotics are good things. An infection, if you have chronic, uncontrollable high blood pressure, controlled by other methods, then a drug may be necessary. But we're finding that things like that are treated just rampantly, like ADHD, putting kids on amphetamines and methylphenidate and other things like that, we're finding that if we change their diet, they need a lot less help from pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical industry doesn't like that trend, as you can imagine.
They make so much money with that.
They do. They make a lot of money.
My
Percocet, that's a pain reliever.
maybe he could just, he's a hypochondriac. He can, anything that hurts, he doesn't, like, he's also a druggie too.
Yeah.
He,
Well,
any drug he can get his hands on.
yeah, that is too bad. Drugs are, as I said, drugs are necessary in some cases, but if you can avoid them, it's better. My father's 101, I'm convinced, because he doesn't take, he's taken very few drugs his entire life. And the ones he's taken them for are for very mild chronic conditions like glaucoma and an enlarged prostate, which any man who's 101 either has an enlarged prostate or it's been removed.
Right.
Yeah, really. So the drugs for those are relatively benign. There is no safe drug. You'll see that in your LRA. There is no such thing as a safe drug. So anyway, you're going to prepare stock orders. You're going to receive and check deliveries. You're going to stock the shelves. In other words, you're going to have a lot of different duties. If you look at a pharmacy, there's the stuff behind the counter, which are the prescription drugs, the things that you actually need to have paperwork to get. And you will find that there's out front. There's not just the OTC products, but there's the bandages and slings and crutches and all of the other things that you stock in a pharmacy area that you're responsible for monitoring, checking the shelf, and doing all this work. So you've got a lot of customer relationship. Filling the majority of the work will be actually filling and checking prescriptions. Oh.
Look what I found.
But then the other important things here, you will when you receive inventory, you'll check the manifest to be sure that it's right. Usually, inventory, when you submit an order, you can submit an order and get a delivery if it's needed. If you work in an area that's and I don't know if you have a wholesaler warehouse in Greeley or not, but there's probably one over here on this side, not very far. Really, it's not very far. So you can get things fairly quickly, usually 24 hours. So you want to make sure that you check everything and be sure it's correct, and then get it on the shelf. Most deliveries now require a signature, because we had several incidents where the UPS delivery trucks that were taking these things out were in cahoots with thieves. And so they would just drop something on a loading dock outside a pharmacy, and then call their friends and say, I just dropped off a load of drugs, and they would steal them. Now it's required, so a bunch of guys went to jail for that, but now we are required to be signed for these things. They have to be delivered into the pharmacy and signed for. Hospital is a little different. In a hospital, you do have a community pharmacy. We call it the outpatient pharmacy. Every hospital has one. You've seen them. They function in exactly the same way as a community pharmacy. But in the hospital, you're not likely actually see the patients. Hospital pharmacies, generally the internal pharmacy that is working with the hospital patients, never sees patients, because all you do is get physician orders, medication orders, the prescription. When you have an order in a hospital, it's not called a prescription as much as a medication. And it comes down through the computerized physician order entry system directly into the pharmacy. So you don't see the physician, you don't see the patient. You simply prepare the medication and ship it off. There, while you will monitor inventory, you don't order anything. There is a back office, a support staff for the pharmacy that probably is composed in many cases of former pharmacy techs who are familiar with everything, and they take care of all the ordering. You may have to stock things. You will monitor. And if things start getting low, and hospitals have a high throughput, especially in sterile products, when things start getting low, you will alert people and get an order. But we had a time, you talk about shortages, there was a time when there was a critical shortage of normal saline, which is what we mix a lot of drugs in. And again, it was because the manufacturing facilities had problems. So we have these things. So you're going to do a lot of sterile preps as well as just normal medication. When you first go to a hospital pharmacy, unless you go through a specialized training, you'll be working with mainly just filling random medication. Sterile preparations in a hospital require a further certification beside the basic pharmacy technician certification. And that also, many hospitals will pay for that. But the end result, when you have that certification, is that you find that you are going to see a very large increase in compensation because it's a specialty. It's a particularly stressful one. Hospitals run 24 hours. In a community, most community pharmacies will be closed by 11 o'clock at night. You'll have a few that stay open 24 hours. Hospitals have to be running 24 hours a day. So there are always pharmacists. Very small hospitals might have overnight no pharmacy technicians because they don't have enough work. But for the most part, you're going to have people working 24 hours a day. So in the hospital setting, you will have some of the some of these same duties, filling prescriptions and everything, but we add in preparing sterile products for injection, specialty training for things like total parenteral nutrition, etc. So we have in the hospital setting a different arrangement. Rarely do we actually see the patient. We don't go up on the wards. We don't deliver. We have aides and pharmacy aides that actually will deliver medication and stock the medication carts. In a hospital, medication is generally put into a cart that is controlled, that you can only open one. It's a set of drawers that are locked. Each one is coded to a specific patient. If you've been in a hospital and watched what happens when they come in for meds, they'll check the patient ID on the wrist, and they'll then confirm that with the record for the prescription before they can give it. And that will then they can use the codes to open up the medication cart that they take around. So we control these things because a lot of these drugs, quite frankly, in the hospital are going to be open. So we're very, very cautious. It used to be in hospitals that we had a pharmacy stock shelf or stock room on every ward, and the nurses would then dispense the drugs. That didn't work. Nurses are very, very good at what they do. They've been trained on dispensing drugs. They've been trained the same way that you're trained here how to calculate doses. It's not what they do all Plus, unfortunately, we have too many instances where drugs were, the polite term is diverted, meaning they got stolen. So often by the nurses or other staff on the floor. So we've gotten away from that as much as possible. And now all medications are routed through. So we have a different set of duties. Specialty, I'm going to talk briefly about that. We have compounders. Every city has some. Every chain, Walgreens, Target, King Soopers, they have compounders. They have a central compounding facility for specialty. Then there are the independent compounders, which will take care of special needs. Not near as many of them as there are regular pharmacies because that's not the biggest area. But we have compounders. We have home health. Many pharmacies will contact with home health, nursing homes, hospice. None of these facilities have their own pharmacy. So what they do is they contract with a commercial pharmacy. It might be a Walgreens, it might be a King Soopers, it might be independent. There are very few independents left. Most of the pharmacies, community pharmacies, pharmacy chains. But when I was a kid, we had a lot of independent pharmacies. We called it the drugstore, and that's what they sold. They didn't sell cameras and CDs and potato chips. They sold only drugs. If you wanted the other stuff, you went to the neighboring store. Now, of course, they're just part of a big conglomeration. And they were always run only by a pharmacist. We called him or her the druggist. Now, most pharmacists work for a larger organization. There are very few of the roughly 60 or 70,000 pharmacies in the United States, and many of those are compounded. So, but home health, nursing homes, and hospice get drugs delivered to them on a daily basis. Home health agencies are more and more getting into drug administration. The fastest growing area of home health is home infusion therapy. We do this for antibiotics for patients who have just come out of surgery, especially for orthopedic surgery patients, because there's a high rate of infection. And we want to get them out of the hospital because hospitals are terrible places to put yourself at risk for infection. So we send them home. The other thing that's going on at home is we're doing home health chemotherapy. It's really so we do that. Nursing homes, again, the pharmacy will go out and every day they'll go in and make sure that the medication carts are stocked. And then the nurses administer the drugs in these medication carts. The medication carts are the same things that they use in hospitals. You'll see in the pharmacy settings chapters, you'll see these devices. Hospice, there again, they don't keep a lot of drugs overnight on site or forever. They're delivered daily, mainly opiates. And there's another type of pharmacy called central fill. Central fill pharmacies are generally places where regular prescriptions are, and a central fill will have a huge stock of drugs. They are cheaper to operate because when you buy more drugs, you get a cheaper price per unit dose, and so the drugs are a little cheaper. They're heavily roboticized, so that when things are stocked, the location is stored in a computer memory so that very few errors are likely to occur because the robot's going to remember exactly where it put
your methylphenidate. And it'll go pick it off the shelf and you'll have the right drug. Central is, so what happens when you go into a Walgreens or a King Super, especially down in Denver, I know that King Super has a central fill facility there. Go into a King Supers with a prescription that's calls for 6 refills, and they'll fill the first one right there in the pharmacy. And then they'll send it off to their central fill facility. And then you'll get a call a few days before your refill is to be delivered, before you theoretically run out of the previous fill, and be asked if you are going to refill it. Because people will stop and not tell anybody that they're not going to come and get the drug. And then if you say yes, and the order goes to the central fill facility, comes back to your pharmacy, and you walk in thinking, just filled it just for you. But it makes it a cheaper operation for them. So we have central fill. We also have something called a nuclear pharmacy. Imaging studies often involve radioactive materials, known as radionuclides, and some therapeutic drugs involve using radiation. And so these radioactive materials are prepared by highly specialized pharmacies known as nuclear pharmacies. The pharmacist is part nuclear physicist, part nuclear chemist, part hazardous waste disposal expert, lots of things. The technicians that go in also get specialized training with dealing with these things. Everything is prepared to order. These are special, this is actually a specialty compound pharmacy. Everything is prepared exactly to order because radioactive isotopes have a very limited lifetime. We talk about the shelf life of our products. These things we're talking about a shelf life of often just days or hours. So they're prepared and used immediately. A lot of hospitals will have big medical centers like Health Sciences Center in Denver will have its own nuclear pharmacy. Others will possibly be working with specialty, or their nuclear pharmacy will actually supply smaller hospitals with material as needed. Obviously, when you're working with radioactive materials, it's very dangerous. The rule of thumb is if you are working with radioactive materials, you yourself will become radioactive, which doesn't mean you're going to glow in the dark. But what it does mean is that you will have some radiation absorption that's in excess of background. And concomitant risks of cancer and other diseases. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about pharmacy settings. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to end that here and take a break. And we are going to